So today we're going to talk about area. Area is length times width, and it's the amount of space in a two-dimensional figure. So like the amount of space in this piece of paper. We're going to start by doing 3 units by 2 units. I'm going to put this aside for a minute. You don't have to. And we're just going to model this with sticky notes. Each yellow sticky note is going to represent one hole. So for this, for our 3 units, we have 3 going across. And we're going to have 2 sticky notes in each column going down. So this rectangle is 3 by 2. We can count that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sticky notes, or 3 times 2, which is 6. So this rectangle then would be 6 square units. If we wanted to draw this, we would draw 3 units going across and 2 units going down in each column. We know that 3 times 2 is 6. So that means 3 units times 2 units equals 6 units. And when we're doing the area, we're talking about squared because we're doing units times units. So units squared can be written with units and then a 2 at the top. We can also say 6 square units. So our right answer, 6 units squared. Let's move down to rectangle B. We have 3 units by 2.5 units. I'm going to model this with sticky notes again, but you don't have to. We'll draw this in a minute. So once again, we have 3 units going across. We're going to have 2 units going down. And then this extra half, move this down. Because remember, we're doing 3 by 2.5. We're going to represent with these blue sticky notes. I know that's not exactly half, but this is what we're representing it with. So this rectangle is 3 units by 2.5 units. We can count by doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 holes. We have 2 halves, so 1, 2, so that's another hole. So far we have 7 holes and an extra half. So we should have an answer of 7.5, but we're going to check that with our multiplication. All right, so if we wanted to draw this, it would be 3 units across, two units down, and then that extra half. So we can do that with like a rectangle. So remember, each of these represents one hole. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have 6 holes. Each of this is 1/2. So that's 1/2 plus 1/2 plus 1/2. We know 2 1/2s equals a hole, so our answer would be 7.5. If we wanted to just use multiplication, we could do 3 times 2 1/2. And remember, we rewrite this as a fraction greater than 1. We can do that by multiplying our denominator times our numerator, or by our whole number. So 2 times 2 is 4. And then we can add our numerator. So it's my small addition sign. So 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5. So now we have 3 times 5 halves. 3 is the same as 3 over 1. So 3 times 5 is 15. 1 times 2 is 2. And 15 halves is the same as 7 and 1/2. This is really similar to just doing the area model that we had talked about before in class, where we had the 3 up here, and then the 2.5 we write in expanded form. The reason we call it the area model is because we're literally finding the area of this rectangle. Here we have 3 times 2, because if we're in the rectangle, we go up 3, to the left 2, and 3 times 2 is 6. Here we go up to 3, multiply it by the half. 3 times 1/2 is 1.5. And when we add that together, we get 7 and 1/2. So our answer is 7.5 units squared. All right, we're going to flip over to C. This is going to be the last one we use the sticky notes for. We have 3/4 times 3 units. So with this, we have 3 going across. So we're going to put 3 across, but notice each unit is only worth 3/4. So we're literally just going to have 3. Oh, let's see if it'll go back. Focus. Come on. There it goes. So we literally have 3 groups of 3/4. We could do 3/4 plus 3/4 plus 3/4, or we could just multiply 3 times 3/4. So we're going to do our drawing. Remember, each one is 3/4. If you need more room, you can write it under. And then we just do, so we could either add 3/4 plus 3/4 plus 3/4, or 3 times 3/4. 3 times 3 is 9. 1 times 4 is 4, which is the same as 2 and 1/4. So our answer would be 2 and 1/4 units squared. All right, let's move on to rectangle D. So this time we're not going to do the sticky notes. We're just going to go right into this. And for the drawing this time, I'm going to just do the area model. So 4.5 units by 2.5 units. I'm going to start by drawing a rectangle. This is the rectangle I'm starting with. It's 4.5 units. So I'm going to do 4 plus 1/2 units by 2.5 units. So going down, it's 2.5 units long. I know when I'm in the square, I'm going to go up. I reach 4. I go to the left, I reach 2. So 4 times 2 is 8. Here, 1/2 times 2. 1/2 times 2 is the same as 2/2, which equals 1 whole. And we're here, 4 times 1/2, which is the same as 4/2, which equals 2 wholes. And here, 1/2 times 1/2, which equals 1/4. So this is pretty easy to add. We have 8 plus 1 plus 2 plus 1/4. 8 plus 1 plus 2 is 11, and we have our 1/4. So our area of this entire square would be 11 and 1/4 units squared.